Loki, episode 5 of season 2. It began where last week's episode ended, right? In this big old flash of light, end of the world situation. So I was pretty excited, right? Pretty excited for this episode. And it was okay. It definitely felt like half an episode. I wish they would release the final one at the same time. That would have been nice. That would have been nice. This is probably out of the whole season, the episode that falls victim to the credit screen the most, just because last week was a big cliffhanger, but at least got you excited. It had you thinking like, oh, there's so many possibilities. We kind of know what's going to happen next week with this episode. So yeah, it was a bit of a cooling moment, a cool down from last week's big boom episode, which I guess is kind of good in that now it tempers our expectations a little bit for the final episode. And I'm not so sure I'm into the direction it's going, but we'll see. Anything can happen, I guess, next week. But let's get into the show. Let's break it down, scene by scene, moment by moment, strand by strand. You might say, people say that when our friends here turn into spaghetti, they call it spaghetti-fication. When the temporal radiation is too high or whatever, they turn into like these strands. People call it spaghetti-fication. But really, isn't it more like a yarn unraveling itself? Don't you think? Really, it's more like a sweater. Maybe if you pull just the strands of these little loose strands on a sweater and you just pull them all at once. Maybe like more like that. Because they call it the time loom. They call it time strand. What do they call it? Branches, right? I guess you can call it. Maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking the time loom makes you think about strands, right? About threads, about threads of yarn, maybe. A loom, a time loom, putting it together, threading it together to make something, a rope or something with structure, like a yarn ball or something, right? Kind of. Or a sweater. So I don't know. It's just a thought. Spaghetti-fication works too. It's a little bit more to the point, right? And I think that's what most everyone's decided, which is okay. It's okay. It's all cool. It's all good. Anyway, so we're back here in the before times, and we get a sneak peek at oh yeah, remember when Mobius was all about his jet ski stuff, his little hobby reading about jet skis for some reason? Well, that's coming back in this episode. And there goes the spaghettification. Bam. And so I did say last time, I did mention, I was like, hey, I bet this week we're gonna see Mobius on a jet ski. And he's going to be ripped out of his timeline to save the universe, etc., etc. And so, I could gloat. I could be like, yeah, I knew what was happening. But really, that's easy peasy prediction right there. I mean, I'm sure like 80% of the viewer base probably thought that too. So it's not a big deal. No need to toot my horn here. And when this episode started, by the way, when this episode started, I was like, no way. We're back to the TVA. Like this whole blast from the time loom explosion. There were so many possibilities. Like, where could they end up? Could they be obliterated into nothingness and everything ends forever and ever? Of course not. But what if like they all got split into different universes and different timelines? Actually, that's kind of what happens. But you know what? At this moment, I'm like, what the fuck? You're back to TVA. I don't want to be the TVA. We've been in the TVA for too long. The show maybe spends a little bit too much to TVA, especially with all the cool branch strands and branches of timeline and spaghettis and yarn threads and such. Um, it could take place anywhere, but it's a lot of the time it's here, which, I guess it kind of makes sense because it's like, hey, this is about the TVA. It's the center of the show, and the show really likes the TVA. It likes it so much that I think it seems to be siding with Loki's sentiment here that, hey, we got to keep the TVA around to protect the multiverse, and I was kind of hoping it would be abolished, but who knows? Maybe next week we'll see it burned. I don't know, but it turns out we're not at the TVA for too long, because now we're in Alcatraz, and guess what? Casey's breaking out of prison. Just an accelerated prison break scene right here. No biggie until someone named Loki shows up. So of course it appears at this point that everybody, all of Loki's friends, have been sent out into their respective timelines that they were plucked out of a long time ago. Now they're back in there. Loki, for some reason, is special and isn't sent back to Avengers headquarters in cuffs, which is where he was picked out of by the TVA all those years ago. I mean, really, it was like a couple years. Season 1 was a couple years ago, something like that. Of course, 2012, which is when that took place, was fuck, dude. That's like more than 10 years ago. Damn it. Anyway, that when 2012 was the Avengers, right? Oh, jeez. Okay. What was I saying? So they're all spread apart in their own little timelines, and he's trying to get the team back together. And that's really what this episode is. It's getting the team back together. And I kind of wish this episode was longer, or maybe there was an extra episode of the season, because it would have been nice to see more of Dr. Willis here, her little world here. Maybe a scene where Loki convinces her to come through the doorway. I mean, you kind of get the idea of, she sees that time slip in that horror show. She eventually sees him come through a time doorway. So at that point, it's kind of easier to accept, like, shit, something's wrong. I maybe want to follow this dude, but still, it would be nice to see more of it, because we did focus on Mobius here a lot. Mobius and Obi a lot too, because they're more central characters, of course, right. But like I said, another episode or something, it would be nice if this felt like, I guess it's like the opening of a movie, of like an Ocean's 11 or whatever, some kind of movie where you gotta get a team together. But it felt a little rushed, right? It felt a little rushed. But we do, in fact, get to see Mobius on a personal watercraft, I believe is the official name, because people keep calling it a jet ski, and that's actually a brand name, folks. Although, people say it's fine, water scooter, jet ski, whatever. But it's actually a personal watercraft. It's the official name, folks. And this one's actually a Sea-Doo right here. But anyway, we do get to see that happen. And I feel like they cheaped out here. Like, I wanted to see him in the water, actually. He's a salesman at the Extreme Sports Store or whatever. Because he sells ATVs too, but it looks as Power Sports, Piranha Power Sports. But the guy later wants to come in and get him a motorbike or something. I don't know. So we get this the mundane sales pitch here, which is fun and cute, And then we get Obi, who actually is a failed or an up and starting science fiction author who has a day job as a teacher, I think, right? Or a scientist or something, a chemistry scientist dude. But yeah, it's a little sad to see Obi, not at his prime here. But so is everyone else. I mean, actually, B15 as she's a doctor, she's doing pretty well. She seems okie dokie. But of course, that's what happens. You get pulled out of your timeline by the TVA. You could be at any point in your life. You can be having a great life. You can be having a shitty life. And this whole episode is really about like, okay, so now that they have the choice now. So now basically the idea is that Loki's giving them the choice to escape this life. But is it a choice? Because as we see Sylvie's later, gonna be like, is that a choice? Because it's either stay here and possibly die from the unraveling of the multiverse, or come with me and possibly save it. Like, at that point, there's no choice but to save the world, right? Unless you're like Sylvie and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna listen to some music at the record shop, and then it comes to her universe and she has to act, and so we'll get there. But this is some fun stuff, right? Again, I feel like some of these scenes feel a little bit rushed. This one definitely has some breath to it. But I think Hiddleston, all these fellas are doing a good job with what they got. This is what happens when you get some good actors in on board, right? Like even something that feels a little bit not up to par can feel really, really fine and good and great, This is pretty scary, actually. I mean, imagine if this crazy, wacko dude wearing this suit here comes to you and it's like, hey, you got to come with me to this time door, and yeah, you'll feel fear for your life, wouldn't you? I mean, it's a little bit of a scary moment, but luckily, Obi comes in just in time, and I gotta say, it's a pretty good little story here with the time travel shenanigans going on here. Like, it really got you feeling in the moment here, like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? But it makes sense. He's coming from 19 months in I guess it's past 19 months since he last saw him, but since Loki saw Obi. But yeah, so he's already got that time pad made, and no need to rehash the explanation. We know what's happening here. The TVA exists, and you got to come with me, etc., etc. And I guess he's like, he convinces him by saying pretty much that his kids are also going to be in danger, but also I think Mobius is like, hey, my life isn't as fun as I want it to be. I want to have some more adventure, and I want to be on that water with that jet ski, not just sell it in some showroom, and he's like, that Mobius name's a pretty cool name, and that's what gets him to do it, So if this whole time thing is a loop here, then maybe Mobius wasn't really taken ever. Maybe all these friends weren't taken by TVA by force ever. It was always Loki on the behalf of TVA, kind of, pretty much. Having them come, and so in that way, it wasn't as oppressive as it would seem, right? I guess that's what the show's trying to get across. Like, it wasn't that they were plucked. They chose to join the TVA and leave their timeline in order to save it. Of course, at some point their mind was wiped, right? So are we gonna go into that time loop, and next episode their minds are gonna be wiped by Kang and he's gonna take over, and that's the end, the big cliffhanger? It's like, oh shit, they lost. Kang's and then the next movie in the Marvel universe is gonna not mention it at all, and then the following movie maybe mention it, and then the next movie maybe address it, and then they'll they'll fix it at that point. You know how it goes. You've seen the MCU movies, right? You've seen it. You've seen this stuff. If you're watching Loki, episode 5, season 2, then you know what's going on. You're a Marvel aficionado, aren't you? Aren't you? I sure hope so. And now we're back to those ugly arches that we got everyone here in the same room. Casey turns out to be a fun, like a really like a scientist and everything. Like that's the life he could have had if he wasn't jailed. You know, maybe he was wrongfully in prison. You know, who knows? I mean, that whole little Alcatraz little situation is definitely based on. There's been movies about it, right? It's based on some reality of some escaped convicts. And I think were never found. And so, yeah, maybe they got sucked in by a time door. Who knows? But it's kind of cool to see Casey being a whole different person. Like, I want to rob banks versus the nerd at the TVA, you know? We have to go back to McDonald's, though. Because frickin' Sylvie, she's fucking is apathetic about everything except her own life. She wants to go back to her McDonald's life, which is like, geez, like maybe, why not? Maybe, why didn't they just have her work at that record store? Like she likes those records. Like just have her work there. Like that would have been much more interesting. That's freaking Mechadianids, or maybe a bartender or something. I don't know. And we get the scene where like she convinces him, nope, I'm not going, and we're right where we should be, and you should write your own life, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Free will time, you know, because she's all about that free will. As long as she's doing a-okay, right? But it turns out she's wrong. Turns out Loki is the right one, the correct one in this little science fiction story. In that the order of the TVA is necessary, it turns out. By the way, the first scene of Loki and Obi was interesting because it was basically breaking the fourth wall because they were discussing how to get the time slipping to get fixed again, how to fix everything. And he mentioned Obi was talking about how perhaps we should follow the rules of fiction, science fiction. It was a bit convoluted, but it was pretty much like a meta commentary on just the show itself, right? So I don't know if it was done as good as it should have been. It was kind of a little hokey a little bit, but you know, it's a minor quibble really. But I guess they were trying to be a little clever there, right? We're in a science fiction story. Let me talk about science fiction solutions to this problem instead of science, because et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, they all lose hope here. Nope, Sylvie's not coming. She's out listening to some cool music, and the clerk here, who also loves his job, right here. You know, this is a nicer job, right, to have than serving some cheap meat patties to satiate Ronald McDonald. This is a nice job. He's enjoying. He's staying here, and he offers some Velvet Underground. You know, one of the coolest band to ever exist, right? One of the coolest bands ever. Lou Reed as a lead, you know, and usually you would see the Banana album, you know, the one that was helped along with by Andy Warhol. Usually would see that in these movies and shows, but it's actually this other one. What's it called? Overloaded or something? It's called just Loaded. This is like one of their later ones, right? One of their later albums. But just grooving here, just grooving. This is actually a really cool scene. I think the effects are pretty well done. The yarnification of everything, the separation of strands. It's like a unique little effect that you don't really see in time movies, right? And slowly everything. I especially like this part right here with the glass. Like it's almost like melting, and then or burning away at the same time. It's so weird, right? But it's pretty neat. Pretty neat. Maybe a little bit indulgent, but it's okay. I don't mind it. And of course, she's got the power to open a time door whenever she wants, And but now that her preferred stupid McDonald world is gone and kaput, she's like, okay, I guess I'll do something now, and she's supposed to represent like the apathetic teenage anarchist who is all selfish and wants to destroy everything. I think so, right? And only does something when it affects them. Again, a simplistic view of anarchism. This show is peddling here, and so it's okay. It's okay. Then we have a moment where like actually things aren't okay, and then for a second here I was like, okay, another Infinity Saga, Infinity what's it called? Avengers Infinity War moment at the end where everyone just gets turned to dust. This time, spaghetti, and like it's kind of like a repeat of what we saw last episode. Almost everyone's like, oh shit, looks like we're done for. Looks like we're dead again. Uh-oh. So it's a little bit annoying at this point. It's like it's not meaningful. It's like it's not. I don't really feel that much going on here because I saw this already. It's kind of like a repeat. But then he controls it. He's able to control it. So luckily, it's not like it didn't last too long. It's like, oh, actually, I'm controlling the time slipping now. And it's up to Loki now. Yep, he goes back. He controls it. There's no need to do any special time or readings or anything. This whole little get together was just for Loki to realize that he could actually time slip with purpose and intent, and with the will to do it, I guess. And he's just gonna slip back into time, back to before the time limit exploded. And now the movie's starting, right? No, it's not starting. We got credits. So yeah. I guess so. Next episode, we're back to TVA again, and maybe we'll fix the time thing, but then Kang will show up or something, another Kang variant, or Timely will turn evil, or Timely maybe is a good version of Kang. Who knows? I don't know, but yeah, it was a little bit truncated, I might say, this episode. It felt that way, and it felt like they just split an episode in half, really. Like I said, this is probably the episode of the season most affected by the episodification of this storyline, right? And releasing it every other week instead of dumping a few. I think they should have dumped, like ideally you should have dumped the first 4 and then on one day, and then wait a week and then dump the last 2, right? But that's not I don't think that's the benefit of Disney Plus, right? They want you to talk about this show week after week after week after week after week after week. And it's worked. We're talking about it. I don't know. Like, it seems like now we're back at the point where, like, okay, the TVA is in fact necessary and we need to protect it to get rid of Kang. I was hoping for a little bit more radical solution, but this is what it is. We'll see next week. Who knows? Things could change drastically, I think. But if I'm looking at it like a full movie, it seems like we've already reached the climactic moment where we know what the hero needs to do and has to do. And it seems like the message of the film has been, at this point, clearly made. So I don't think we're gonna. I think it's gonna side more with Loki's reasoning at the end, and Sylvia's gonna learn to love the TVA. I don't know. There could be some nuance to it. There could be a renaming of the TVA to something else, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I'll be there. I'll be there next week, and Loki will be there too. He'll be able to time travel anywhere at some point in the future now, because like in the next episode is that a new power he has now? Time slipping Loki. Maybe Loki can replace Kang as the villain of this phase of this new phase of Marvel. How about that, huh? Didn't see that coming, did you? Maybe yeah, because I think the latest is that Major's court date happened like last week or something. He will be standing trial, I think, for his assault allegations. So we'll see how that turns out. But if they have to replace Jonathan with another actor, they could, but they could also just swivel. I know the latest reports are also that they, according to Variety, an article over there, they know is that at some point the MCU people were thinking, we got to get rid of Kang and switch it over to Doctor Doom, another big villain in their arsenal of villains. But then I think they're undecided at this point, right? But maybe they should stick with Hiddleston as maybe a variant of Loki turns out to be the big bad, and the variant in this show that we're watching is the good Loki and has to stop him. Maybe it could be a whole different looking Loki, or maybe the whole story arc is that Loki turns bad at the end of this one because like the TVA fails or something, and then he turns into the bad side, and then Sylvie has to be the hero at the end of phase 5, 6, 4, whatever phase we're in. I don't know. I'm rambling. You can ramble too in the comments, wherever on the internet. You can ramble to yourself inside of a pillow when you're sleeping and you don't want to wake up the neighbors. You can just scream into your pillow and talk about all the cool theories you got about what's happening next on Loki season 2 episode 6. What's happening, on MCU, all that jazz. You can do it. You can do it that way. You can go on the internet. I don't know, whatever you want. Talk to a friend. Talk to your mother. Talk to your mom, folks. Tell them that you love them and all that jazz. Brought to you by Mortal Studios. Bye-bye. Bye.